And then this should be a Nematobrachon amphiloxus, the black emperor.
Stanley Weitzman, they came out of Pomeroy, so they're really another form of Pomeroy, but just poor Stan passed away, and I miss him a great deal. We were friends for over 50 years, and he was one of our great ichthyologists and really a meticulous guy. He was very meticulous about what he did.
Yeah.
He didn't shoot from the hip. He wanted to make sure it was correct, or he wouldn't describe it.
He told me he couldn't see quite much difference between amphiloxus and Palmeri, but he didn't see enough to say they were the same. So he left it as it is. That's what he told me.
Yeah, that's right. Cari. I introduced the first Cari in 1977. I got them in the Amazon, named after Kerr, who was the curator, he was the big shot in IMPA, which is a scientific station in Manaus, and we stayed there for a week. I was there with Weitzman. He got a grant from National Geographic, and he included me in on it. So I was there with Stan for 6 weeks in Brazil. We explored the whole coastline, and then we spent a week in the Amazon and then a week in Venezuela. So we had a fantastic trip. This fish was found by two scientists that were friends of ours that were on the excursion with us, Geraldo Britsky, who's an expert on catfish, and Iarcio Menezes, who's an expert on Mimigordiatus and Lacorte. They had this fish in a jar in Stan. I remember when we were in the museum, Stan got this jar. He says, "Hey, Rosario, take a look at this. There is a whole jar of all pickled fish." I said, "Wow, that looks like it'd be a great aquarium fish." He said, "Yeah." He said, "It's been sitting on a shelf for 10 years and nobody's described it yet." So much later, they did describe it, and they called it Nanocarex venustus. And I did breed it. It's one of the nastiest fishes I ever saw. I spawned him, and he killed the female, chopped her to pieces in the act of spawning her. And I got another female, and I got young out of that. And I did an article for Amazonas when it was actually Dots, or if I get a German edition, Hans Georg Evers was the editor. But I was the one that spawned the fish, and I used my picture and the information that I had, so it had to be that way. But it was nice. It was pretty nice. The Basilocarex Weitzman, it's named after Stan Weitzman. You couldn't ask for a nicer fish. Beautiful fish. Well, here's Ichthyology epicaris. Stan Weitzman described this fish, and a young lady did the drawing. She did a nice job because I do artwork as well, but she did a wonderful job. I said to Stan, "I think it's one of the nicest drawings I saw some of." And he says, "Yes, she's very good." She is. That's a nice drawing. Okay. I tell you this, that Brazil is such a fascinating country, and it's loaded with diversified fish. And there's a lot of fish we never have seen yet, and we may never see because they're destroying so much property. I tried to get one of the scientists down here who's a very good friend of mine. He's world famous. He's still alive, and he's a professor. And I spent a week at his home. He's a good friend of mine. And I tried to get him and he had a lot to do with the government. I tried to get him to make a note of all the places where annual fishes are found and keep it off limits to construction and to drain those areas, because some of those things are valuable. They have such a limited location. They don't have much, they're not found in too many places. So they should be restricted and kept away. People should be kept away from them. But they're destroying. They don't care. They just see fishing here. It's more important to put a bungalow up there along the shore. Like the Constancia is only a half a block away from the ocean. And there's their habitat. And yet now I understand where we collected Constancia. I think they have bungalows there now. So that probably is drained, and there's homes in that area. This is a German black embers. They are nice. And I did distribute them, so there's a number of people I've had. I made sure a lot of my stuff went out to people I would be good breeders and keep them going. All right. There's a close-up of a black emperor. That come out of Pomeroy, though. I had them going for 60 years. I still had them. Some of the guys still have them in the club. All right. I think that's the one you got, Randy.
I think so. And I do want to call out, you said 60 years. You were keeping these since the 60s, and it was only until recently. And you had like 3 colonies of emperor tetras, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you kept them going for decades. And to me, that's amazing. So you said 60 years, not 16. I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah. Next. Yeah, that one's named after me. That's the red-eyed emperor. Beautiful fish. You very seldom see it out of Colombia. It's a nice fish. They're not as prolific as the others, but they can be bred the same way. All right. There's Pomeroy. Very easy fish to spawn. I got some real nice pictures of beautiful males with finnage. Much better than that. And that's a fry. I got them over a bed of sphagnum moss. And all you do is let them stay in there and they'll breed every day. And then you'll see different stages of growth. They'll stay down below. And then once they get to a certain size like that, they'll come up and swim right with the parents. And the parents don't bother them. They're very easy to take care of. My wife and I, when we first got married, we had rooms above my parents. And we were just 2 young kids. And I was making $33 a week working as an apprentice. So there wasn't much money to work with. And I remember to buy an angelfish you could buy an angelfish for about 25 cents or 30 cents. That was a lot of money. You can go to the store and you can get a pound of sugar. I don't know, it was like 10 cents a pound. Everything was cheap, but everything is relative. Mm-hmm. But when you're only making $33 and you got to pay rent and you have to eat for the whole week, $33 is not much. It's relative, but I mean, at the time, you survived. I think my father used to make $5 a week. But $5 was a lot of money then. The house that I lived in, that house was built in 1883, and it went for $2,500. It was 20 rooms. It had big beams in there. Could you ever see a house built for $2,500? But people only worked for 10 cents an hour. Yeah. That was the difference. And you could see it when we had windows. It said 1883, July 1883. That's when it was built. Everything is relative. My fish, I had 200 tanks. And as I said, I had 150 different species of fish. And they're not small tanks either. I had a 3-car garage with 6 skylights. It was a wonderful setup. People that have been to my house. I have a ledger here. I think you signed it, Randy.
I did. Yes.
Signed the ledger. There's a lot of guys signed the ledger. Over to hey, hon, I says, how many people do you think have come to our house in all the years we're here and in the old house? Well, she said, at least 100 or so signed the book. I said, really? I said, no, keep going. 200? I says, no. Keep going. About 300. No. I said, no, you know what? I says, let's forget the guessing game because I cheated. I counted. It was 532 people. We fed coffee and cake, we had some people stay for a week. There was always somebody here, and she was always gracious. And everybody loves Jeannie, and they all have kind things to say about her in the book. So I got a prize. Yeah. And I always get her. I'll marry you again. How do you like that? I'll marry you again. Is that okay?
Maybe they were coming for the coffee and cake and weren't there to see you or the fish. You never know, right?
To some of the things that Rosario tells you, I think it's natural for some people to be a little puzzled, or I don't know if the word is skeptical or puzzled, but when you're actually there and you see Rosario do it, then you just know, yeah, I mean, this is not fantasy. For example, Rosario breeds or used to breed anyway, his blue galaris over gravel. He didn't use mops. He didn't use peat moss. He would just have a bunch of them in one of those like 30-gallon stainless steel breeders, and they'd be breeding over this very thin layer of number 3 quartz gravel. And then what he showed me and my cousin one day, he said, "Oh, you want to see how I get the eggs?" Yeah, sure. And he just got a big hose, a wide diameter hose, and siphoned out all this gravel into a 5-gallon bucket, and then taking a net, like a 4-inch net, he made like a figure 8 inside the bucket. And when he brought the net up, there had to be several hundred eggs in there. And it's when you see Rosario do the things he does, you understand why he's, one of America's most famous fish breeders, if not the most famous fish breeder, because he really pays attention to what he's doing and tries different things. If one thing doesn't work, he'll try something else. And like he always tells me, he's always up at night thinking. He's always thinking, and comes up with some of his best ideas while he's lying there at night, trying to sort through different fish breeding problems. So there's always something to talk about.
He is one of the most brilliant people that I've ever met. I mean, I have never met somebody as curious and inquisitive as him. And it goes so far back. I mean, he was always trying to connect with people, always trying to put a penny in a tank and see what that does. And he's a brilliant person.
Hey, Jenny, tell my wife that. She's sitting here. She heard you. She's sitting in a chair and she's laughing.
Tell them I agree.
You know what she just said, Jenny? She said, I agree with you.
Thank you for your husband.
You can answer on.
I said thank you for.
Oh, that's Jenny.
Well, as Rosario said earlier, they've been married 70 years, going on 71, right, Jeannie? And
70. Yep, going on 71.
Yeah, and I've been, with them quite a bit, and I've had chances to have long conversations with Jeannie, and let me tell you, Jeannie is one of the sharpest, most full of common sense people you'll ever meet. So she's every bit the right match for Rosario. They're both really sharp.
Thank you. Thank you.
No, you're welcome, Jeannie.
And I'm very thankful too. Thank you for both of you.
Thank you.